Hey there, I'm Brad Miller and here with Jason Medford, and we are walking a spiritual path with you today. And today, wanted to talk about something a little different. The idea of seeing what isn't there but is. And you're probably like, what the heck is he talking about, right? What's going on? So I'll kind of tell you where this kind of came from. So I was on social media today and was in a conversation with someone. And I was talking about how, especially when I was younger, I really liked wanted to be able to draw and paint and do those kind of things, right? To become an artist. So, maybe watch some shows or things like that about it. And the problem I ran into though was I could picture in my head what I wanted it to look like. Like I'd say I wanted to do a cabin in the woods, right in the mountains or something. I saw see Bob Ross do that
Hmm.
on PBS and stuff. So I wanted to do a little happy little trees, right? And so I knew in my head what I wanted. I could see the picture of what I wanted to do, but when I tried to actually do it, I couldn't I just couldn't figure out how to make it work that way, right? And one of the people that kind of was in the conversation with me said, well, her family, I guess, had artists in their background. One was an artist or something, and so said, well, she's like, you see a tree out there and you see a white tree, but to get that white tree, you actually need to use maybe purple. And if you start thinking about using purple to make that tree, that'll help you make the tree, make it look white. And so after my head kind of was like, wait, what? I had to wrap it around there a little bit. I realized that she's right. That's part of the issue. Like I would see, like I look out my window and I've got a red chair out here on my deck. If I go and take some red paint on my paintbrush and I start going on my, canvas or paper, whatever, it's not going to look like that because while the chair is red, it's not really red like that,
Hmm.
right? And I'm not talking about just painting here today. But this is something that has a lot of deeper kind of spiritual meanings and stuff. And so that is what I want to talk about today. And I have no idea where this is going to go. So um, it'll be fun to see where we ride with it today. So,
Well, we're going to figure it out because I think as you brought this up as a topic, it's interesting because I can see probably three or four different places to kind of go with it. But I think, the one aspect is like you were just talking about with, painting the chair, right? And I think there's a famous story of Michelangelo, saying that he saw the sculpture inside of the piece
mhm,
of marble. He was just taking away, right, the outside of it to unleash what was already within it, right? It was something that isn't there because it's just a rock, but it is there because it's on the inside, right? And there's a whole lessons, down that path too for us personally as well, right?
mhm,
Well, am I seeing what isn't there, or am I seeing what is there, but what really is there? Because there's also the story of the golden Buddha from Thailand, where it was this huge solid gold Buddha, and I've seen it in person. It's amazing. It's so wow. Okay, solid gold Buddha statue that was in this temple, and the neighboring group was coming in. They started having a war, and so they were afraid that the neighboring army would come in and would take and plunder this. And so the monks actually put like concrete and dirt and everything else to cover it up and make it look like it was just a stone Buddha. And so the wars kind of waged for years and years and years and years, and all of a sudden people kind of forgot that it was actually gold underneath it, right? Because all the people who had done this, who knew it was golden Buddha, had died. And many years later, there was a monk who was sitting there praying, and all of a sudden something kind of fell off and saw this gold underneath it and went, "What?" Right? And they ended up kind of removing everything and seeing the gold underneath. And so, in a way, it's like that for all of us, right? The gold that is inside of all of us, even though it's crusty on the outside, right? So seeing what isn't there but is, right? Can I look at Brad and see the beautiful light being and golden person that he is on the inside, even though I'm looking at his temporal body, right? Can I see that? Because that really is what's there. He's just hiding behind this meat suit, right? But if we
Mhm.
saw him with our physical eyes without his body, we'd go blind, right? Because it would be so blinding we couldn't look directly at him. And so I think there is kind of that part of it of, can we see what's really on the inside that we know is there, but we're not seeing it right now? And also, can we see those things with that blank canvas and create or plasmate that chair? And like you said, it brings up a whole interesting thing, because one of my brothers actually used to he worked in motion pictures and stage for a while doing set design. And it's the same thing that that person on social media was telling you today, that most of the sets, in movies or on stage, if you actually go up and look at them closely, it doesn't look like what it does from
Mhm.
where the audience sits. Because there'll be more purple or other things that are in it, but it looks like a gray brick to you when you're sitting out in the audience, because that's what it's supposed to look like, right?
Mhm.
And so I think I think there's a couple of different ways to go with this one, right? Which is, I'm looking at a gray brick on a stage and I'm perceiving a gray brick, but is it really a gray brick? Because if I go up and examine it closer, no, it's just 3D painted. It's on a flat surface.
Mhm.
But to me, from my perception, and it's purple and blue, but
Right.
from my perception where I'm at out in the audience, I see a gray brick. So, how much of our life, again, are we perceiving certain things and
Mhm.
believing that it is something that it is not? And because, again, all of us have been indoctrinated. I'm
Mhm.
sitting here looking at my microphone. It's a gray microphone, metal. But why do I perceive that as a gray metal microphone? Because that's what I've been taught, right?
Mhm.
But if I could see that microphone energetically, completely energetically, that is not what I would see, because reality is just bending based on my belief structure to make that be what it is. And so there's that whole
Yeah.
side of it.
Yeah, no, yeah, that the same thing happens like Broadway shows and things like that. Like, I go to see different shows or plays, and it's the same concept where the angles that they use and you know to make things look from where you sit realistic to you, you go up there and you're like, well, that's not even straight. Like that's like crooked like this, and
Mhm.
Disneyland is also famous for that. Like you go down Main Street, USA, and the buildings aren't level. Like the roof lines, everything else, everything's kind of at an angle because of perspective. From where
Yep.
the person is standing, they want it to look like it is a nice straight level even building. But when you actually get up there and you look at it, you realize that's off. That's kind of crooked. They use optical illusions
Mhm.
to make things happen to get you to see what they want you to see. A whole nother rabbit hole we could go down with that one.
Well, yeah. I mean,
Like,
because it's yeah, we perceive what we choose to perceive, right? And there's
mhm,
there's the line in the Matrix too, in the movie The Matrix, where it's like, the spoon bending. And it's like, no, there is no spoon, right? It's like, quit trying to bend the spoon. There is no spoon. You're seeing a
mhm,
spoon in front of you, but there is no spoon, right? And I think a lot of times it's hard for us logically in our 3D mind to grasp some of these concepts, because they're not intended to be grasped here. And I think that's part of the spiritual process, is actually learning how to question what we see,
Hmm.
because what we're seeing with our 3D eyes is not really what's happening, right? The things that we're saying, that we're hearing, that we're observing is not really what's happening. We think it is,
Hmm.
but it's not really what's happening, right? And the more that we can come in tune with and kind of understand and kind of see things for what they really are, right? Uh, then things kind of start opening up to us more, you know. Same thing like you were talking about, the Broadway props in Disneyland. Same thing. If you look at people on in movies or on television, if you're up close to them, you see this. I learned this early on when uh, I was doing some work in the Idaho legislature when I was in high school. So I had to go to the bathroom. Right. So I go into the men's room, and here's this TV reporter, right? Well-known TV reporter,
Hmm.
in my hometown, that I'd seen on the news all the time, right? And I'm in there, and he's putting makeup on in the bathroom. A man putting on makeup in the bathroom, right?
Hmm.
Which again kind of shocked me a little bit at first, but then too, when I saw how much he was putting on, it was kind of like, whoa. It's the same thing. Like if you look at stage actors or stage actresses, and sometimes after the show, you can go and meet and greet them, kind of thing. And you walk
Hmm.
up and you're like, oh man, clown patrol. What is this, Tammy Faye Baker kind of, makeup going on here? But it's that way so that when they're on the stage, it appears a certain way. It's an optical
Hmm.
illusion, right? Um, and yeah, I'm not quite sure where that either, but other than most of what we're seeing is an optical illusion to us. And can
Hmm.
we see it for what it really is, or are we going to continue to just see the optical illusion?
Yeah. So again, I guess the question is, how do we know that there's something, or how do we see beyond the facade that's out there? How do we see behind the stage makeup to see what's actually back there? I mean, because obviously, if from a stage perspective, it's there to fool the eye. It's there to make you believe something. The buildings are constructed, for the props in a way to make you believe something. So how do you then get that different perspective, let's say, that you can actually see that the makeup is really caked on, or that the buildings are actually angled or made up of purple and blue as opposed to the gray bricks that you think you see?
Mhm. Well, I think part of it is a difference in perception
Hmm.
and perspective, right? So like you said, I mean, you saw that on the stage before, right? You could see what it was like out in the chair in the audience, but until you actually got up and actually examined it,
Hmm.
right, closer from a different angle, from a different distance, right, you can't really see, in fact, what is actually going on. And so there is a spiritual practice that I call triangulation. I don't know that there was really a term that was given when I was kind of shared this, but the idea is where you are becoming an active observer to what you are doing right now.
Hmm.
And so, as an example, right now I'm talking with Brad. We're recording this podcast. I see him on the screen. He sees me on the screen. And we're having this discussion together. But to triangulate it and to get this objective view, what I would do is imagine myself. And when I do this, for some reason, I usually always am to my right side. I don't know why. That's just the way I do it.
Hmm.
But I imagine as if I'm standing to my right and I'm looking at me and I'm looking at Brad. And so in this instance, even though we're virtual, I'm going to kind of assume that Brad is literally sitting in a chair in front of me and I'm
Am
sitting in
I?
my chair. But are you? Right.
Yeah.
And so from the triangulation standpoint, I'm going to be looking at this as if I'm looking from this side, right? So I'm looking at my right side. I can imagine myself sitting in the chair. I can imagine, Brad's left side of him and sitting in his chair and just sit there as if you would, like you're observing somebody else's conversation. And when you do that, you start to see the words that are being used, the body language that really is being used. And when you start to become more sensitive to the energy and intention behind it, then you can really start to feel or see what's actually going on. Okay. And as an example, this morning I was sitting on my porch outside, and one of the neighbor next door was out, I don't know, cleaning her car, doing something. She was out in front of her house. And the neighbor on the other side came out. And there was a little interaction between the two of them. And the one neighbor, it kind of sounded like from the words that were being used that it was a friendly conversation. But I could feel the energy of those words. And I knew what's actually was happening is not what the words were. The words didn't match the action or the energy. And so I think that's one way as we start to um, just trust into it and just try to, again, feel it, feel the energy that people are putting off. You start to see what's really behind it. Right. Because if somebody comes up and says, "Oh, Brad, that was such a great job. You're so wonderful, blah, 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 blah." It's like, well, but what's the intention behind that person? The
Mhm.
words that are behind it? Because it could mean a lot of different things. And is it genuine, loving, appreciative? Is it something else? And you can start to get a sense of that as you feel into the energy more. And I don't know how to describe that. It's hard for me to kind of explain it too, but I've
Mhm.
I've been getting better at feeling what's actually going on.
Yeah, and I think the key to me sounds like it's take to kind of go back to our metaphors we've been using to kind of look up close.
Mhm.
Like you need to get up from your seat in the audience, and you need to kind of, because I mean, honestly, if you really think about it, we are kind of like an audience member to life. I mean, you could
Mhm.
use that, we're kind of sitting there, we're watching things go by and seeing how things are as an observer. But if you really want to see what's going on, what colors made up the bricks on the prop building, you need to gonna go up to it and get closer and get a look, like you said, a different perspective on it, and get to see exactly what colors did they use in that brick. Is it really gray, or is it shades of blue and purple and some yellow and maybe some green? Like what exactly is it they've got in there? But you can't see it from a distance. You've got to change the angle you're looking at, or the distance you are away from it somehow.
Yeah, and I think it's also, kind of thinking about the situation that you're in, right? So if I'm at a magic show, there's an illusionist in front of me. I know they're tricking me, right? I know they're doing some kind of sleight of hand to make it appear that something is happening that really isn't happening. But I'm paying for that. I know that. I'm allowing myself to be tricked, right? In a way. Okay.
Mhm.
When I watch a movie, I know it's not real. right? I know all the special effects. I know how they do a lot of the special effects and the shooting and the other stuff with it. I know it's not real, right? And so I'm getting entertainment value from it, but I don't believe, right, that James Bond can really jump out of a plane from 30,000 feet and some amazing thing happens and boom, boom, boom,
Land in
boom,
his
boom. And
car and
yeah,
zoom
and
off.
and he
Exactly.
doesn't die, right? So I know that is not real. I don't believe that. I don't buy into that, but I'm entertained by it, right? In
Mhm.
in seeing it. But, so much of the time we allow ourselves to just be entertained with everything else and just go along as an audience member and give away our power to everybody else. I mean, part of taking back your power is not necessarily crying bullshit all the time when people say something, but to go, is that what I believe too? Am I just going to believe it because they say it? Or am I going to go inspect a little bit? Am I going to think
Trust but
about it?
verify.
Yeah, am I going to trust and verify? Am I going to, you know, check in with my inner self or my higher self, which we can do anytime.
Mhm.
Somebody says something, and often I will check in with my higher self quietly. Nobody knows that this is going on, but I'm like, is that true? Not. And if I get a true hit, then it's like, oh, interesting, right? Or sometimes I'll get the, nope, that is complete and utter hogwash, right? Of what came out of their mouth. And it's like, so then it's like, okay, I hear what you're saying. And what I don't say is, but I don't believe you.
Right. I'm
I'm
not
not
buying
going to
it.
believe, I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it, right? Because I think that's too where uh, and how to say this. You said it well. It's like we're all in the audience,
Mhm.
right? And so if you want to choose to just sit in your chair and be entertained and not do the work, not analyze things from a different perspective, not check in with yourself, and feeling of the energy or the other things that are going on, then that's fine. But if you do, then what you start to notice is this is a dream, and everything around us and the things that are constructed in the way our movie is playing is all because of our belief structure, but it's not real. It's not
Mhm.
real. I'm holding a pen or what I perceive as a pen because of what I've been taught, and it writes and it does these functional things, but a pen is not just a pen. That red chair outside on your deck, we call a chair,
Mhm.
but is it just a chair? It has many other uses. We've just been taught to call it a chair.
Mhm.
Can it be a table? Can it be a sawhorse? Can it be an
A
easel
ladder.
for a ladder, an easel for painting? Right. So we placed all these labels on things and believe that any one thing can only be one thing at the same time, but it's not.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, and we can choose. You could choose to be the audience member who just allows yourself to get so absorbed in the show, um, that you actually believe that it's true or that you're living in there. I mean, I'm sure, we probably all been, watching maybe a Netflix or something, some sort of show where you really get into it and you can't wait to see what's next because you've bought into the world. I mean, some of these movies like The Lord of the Rings, you just really, or Star Wars, you just really get into it because it's so colorful of a world and everything, and so you just feel like you're there.
Mhm.
And real life is no different than that.
No, and
Instead of, but
it's yeah. Well, because professional wrestling comes to mind too, right? As I remember, again, I was still young. I was this was one of my jobs in the summer in high school. As I was working at this retail store, large grocery store, And one of the people that was in there would bring in these, professional wrestling magazines. She and her family were like really into professional wrestling, which I mean, it's entertainment. Don't get me
Yep.
wrong, it's entertainment. The people who do it, I mean, they're amazing athletes.
Hmm.
They're also amazing actors and actresses because most of it is all staged and made up, right?
Hmm.
But for her and her family, it was real. And I remember having a conversation with her, even, here I am like 16, 17, she's maybe 40. And I'm like, you realize most of that's acting, right? No, she would not have anything to do with it. She would not hear anything to do with it. No, this is all real, right?
Right.
So, who are we in our lives? Are we the person who's questioning, or are we the person who's saying, "Oh, no, 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 that's this is how it is. That really is a microphone. It's only a microphone. I see it. I can touch it. I can taste it. I can smell it. That's all
Hmm.
that it is. It's just a microphone." But it's so much more than just a microphone, especially if you get down to the subatomic level and see the energy behind it. It's way more than just a microphone. Way more than just a pen. There is no pen, right? Just like there is no spoon.
Hmm.
And I think the hard part too is that it's these things that we're talking about, you can't think your way through it.
Right.
The only way is to practice and to actually feel it, right? Feel it from a psyche perspective, a spirit perspective, of whatever word you want to kind of use. Um, and in some of the experiences that we often have where we see outside of the ordinary reality, or in a elevated consciousness level, where we now start to perceive or see things differently. We see things as colors, as sounds, as energy, as waves of light, right? Instead of in the physical material matter form that we perceive with our eyes in this body.
Hmm. Yeah, it makes me think. So, taking this a little bit, I think it's related, and maybe it's not, but who cares? This is our show. We can do what we want,
We
right?
can do it. We'll go
Um,
wherever we want to go.
right. Uh, so the idea that, and kind of going back to the concept of a theater and us kind of being an audience member in the theater, but the fact that the the life that we are living, we see ourselves, we see things in a certain way. So maybe I'm watching this and I'm saying, well, Brad is sitting here and he is recording his podcast and he's doing it because he wants to help people and blah, 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 whatever it might be. When Jason's on here and he's doing the same thing and he's wearing a hat and, all this other stuff. But then if I ask somebody else, what do they see? So maybe somebody who's watching this on YouTube, what do you see? Chances are good that they're going to see something different. They may see some of the same things. They may see somebody with a hat on and glasses and Jason sitting in a chair talking, or they maybe see somebody, me talking on this podcast, but they may see someone who's just trying to get an audience, maybe. They may see us as somebody who doesn't know what they're talking about or just making shit up. They're not necessarily wrong, but like, they may see something that way. And then somebody else may do the same thing and see it a completely different way. They may feel that this is staged. Maybe they think that this is all a big stage production that we do, and that we're really just actors here. Like, but the fact that everybody's going to see the same event a different way from their perspective. And even and which brings the question of, what is objective? because I think you can argue that nothing you see is objective. Everything that you're looking at is colored by your perceptions, by what you've been taught, your indoctrinations, your biases, things like that. And so if we're all seeing something different from a different perspective, then to me that kind of reinforces or almost proves the fact that what we see is not actually what's there, that there's something else back there. Because we're all
Yeah.
seeing the same thing and we're seeing a different way. And if that's the case, then something else must be going on behind the scenes.
Yeah, exactly. And it's even down to a one of the beliefs that pretty much all humans have is we think everybody else is perceiving the
Mhm.
same things that we are. And so, I've done this, many different times that and so everybody you can try your own experiments on this too, but even, somebody else, if Brad and I were sitting in the same room, because it'd be easier if we're together, because I've done this before where it's like, well, we don't even all perceive the same um, color, right? Or what certain things are that even we can be looking at the same object, and I see one color and you see a different color. And it has nothing to do with being colorblind, let's say either. Is I might perceive something as black, you might perceive it as dark purple, right?
Mhm.
And I've done this, many times that you can do that to where, we all have slightly different perceptions of reality because of our indoctrinations, because of our beliefs and everything else that have come along with it. And so
Mhm.
we perceive the world differently. Um, so, you know, seeing what isn't there but is, right? And maybe starting to see things from a different perspective, because I think this too is an important thing for us to connect with other people, connect with nature, is seeing and putting ourselves in the shoes of others, and starting to understand maybe why other people perceive the things that they do, right?
Mhm.
And even, again, how does a tree feel? What do you think the tree is observing when we're doing certain things? It's doing something. It's perceiving and sensing things no different than we are, but it's doing it in a slightly different way. Each human, does the same thing. We're going to pick up on, certain things that other people may not even pick up on at all, right? Subliminally or unconsciously, intended or unintended, along with it. So to me,
Mhm.
it's yeah, it goes. This can go. We could keep talking about this for hours and hours, hours as
Mhm.
well, because it can go so many different places as well.
Yeah. So we just hit the tip of the iceberg here for you, just to give you a little taste, a little tease of the rabbit hole here. Um, yeah. So.
Yeah, but start questioning, and not from a cynical perspective, but from a curious perspective, right? Because
Mhm.
any of the great masters uh, know nothing, right? And so I've
Mhm.
started to try to think of myself as the more I learn, the less I really know. Because the
Mhm.
more we learn, the more we realize there's more to learn. And the more we realize that a lot of what we've been taught or that we have learned is not actually true because
Mhm.
of our indoctrinations. And that to me is one of the biggest parts of a spiritual path, is to start questioning and letting go of the beliefs and the indoctrinations that no longer serve us, that are not true, that we were just taught to be controlled in this life, and to start shedding those away one at a time.
Mhm.
And part of that is seeing what's there but isn't there, and seeing what
Mhm.
isn't there but that is. It's kind of both sides of this as well.
I could have titled either way. Yeah.
Yeah,
Could be either way
it's
with it.
it's it because I think it's both ways.
Yeah. So,
Mhm.
well, now that you've all had your mind blown here for today, we could kind of all twisted your head a little bit, and now you're questioning reality. Welcome to the rabbit hole. That's well, we have cake and pie in the back and
Yeah.
some drinks. But yeah, I like you said, it's just questioning things just from a sense of curiosity. And for me, it goes along with what you said. Kind of come to this decision. I know I'm not going to understand things because there's just that much more to understand, and that's okay. And that's okay.
Part of the journey.
It is part of the journey. It is indeed. So, and with that, we will wrap up for today's episode. Thank you guys for listening and letting us mess with your mind today. Hopefully you come back next week for episode because otherwise we're just gonna have nobody listening
There
after
is
that.
no spoon. There is no podcast.
There
This
is
is
no,
not really happening right now. Right? No.
yeah.
Yeah.
You're really dreaming, but that's again, that's another episode right there. So, thank you guys for listening. We appreciate it very much. Thank you guys, and we will catch you guys in the next episode.
All right. See you, everybody.